it's the Midnight Raven, and today we are doing another tier list. And today's tier lists are ranking British comedies of the 1970s. So you may be thinking, why British comedies, why the 1970s, and why am I doing it? Well, British comedies of the 1970s were basically the stepping stone to today's comedies. The laughs, the jokes, the humour has changed over the years. And me not being born in the 1970s, I myself was born in the 1980s, did have parents that used to enjoy TV from back in the day and some golden oldies. And I thought I would share my thoughts on the 1970s comedies. And then in the future, we're going to do the 80s, 90s, and then obviously modern day TV shows. So like I said, today we're going to do the 1970s. So let's show you the tier list that I have in mind. And the tier list I have in mind looks like this. So we have 13 shows as always. We always do the number 13. Don't ask me why. It's unlucky, I know, but I like it. So today we're going to go through 13 classic TV shows from the UK. And we're going to say whether they're must-watch, whether they're good, whether they're watchable, or whether they're meh. And just meh. So let's get on with the video. So today, like I said, 1970s. Comment down below whether you like the 1970s, your favourite shows, or if you've never watched British TV, if you live in America. So the first one we're going to do is Open All Hours. So Open All Hours is a goodie. Came out in 1973. Had 4 seasons, so quite a short run. Basically, Arkwright runs a grocery store in Doncaster. And is in love with Nurse Gladys, who lives opposite his shop. And it basically, the story shows how that he's rejected by this nurse repeatedly. And then you have Granville that also works in the shop with him, his little unfortunate assistant. And they go through trials and tribulations of him trying to woo this nurse. You've got some comedy gold in there with David Jason, Stephanie Cole, and it's a real stunner of a show. It really is. I've spent many hours watching this comedy show, and obviously you've got Ronnie Barker in it as Arkwright. So where do we put Open All Hours? So I think it's definitely a must watch. I've spent many hours laughing at the till scene. If you don't know what I mean, go and watch it. There's a till that apparently likes to eat people in his shop, and they have trials and tribulations, and it is just good classic fun. The next is Are You Being Served? So Are You Being Served? Again, another classic, 1972, had 10 full seasons. It's about the ladies and gentlemen's section in a department store. And they're constantly at loggerheads in the department with the men's side versus the women's side. This stars some pretty good actors. You've obviously got John Inman, Wendy Richards, Frank Thornton, and Molly Sugden. So you got some really good comedy gold classics there. Basically, they fight in this store. Mr. Humphreys is obviously a gay assistant, which back then was very new. Having a gay person on TV in such with his flares and his flamboyance. It was quite talked about when the show first came out for him being so flamboyant. Mr. Humphreys was a pretty funny character, but obviously with the whole him being gay thing and it being on TV, obviously the TV got some backlash. As nowadays, if it had come out, it would just be seen as normal. But then some people were offended. And obviously the sexism between the males and the females obviously came up. So a lot of controversy came out of this classic TV show. But it was a good TV show nonetheless. And it ran, like I said, for like 10 seasons. So obviously it had its trials and tribulations, but it's a classic. So I would say it's a good. I wouldn't say it's a must watch because some of the humor, some of the stories may not be for everybody, and obviously some people were offended by the gay person being in it. So Nowadays, people would overlook that, but back then it was a big thing. So the next one we are going to look at is Dad's Army. So Dad's Army was a Home Guards TV show set in Warmington-on-Sea in 1968, featured 9 seasons. This is where Manwaring, a bank manager, is appointed the leader of the Home Guard, which comprised of regulars throughout the village. You had the baker, you had the undertaker, you had the butcher, you had the black marketer, and it basically shows you their struggles during World War II. They get invaded by the Nazis at one point, and it shows how the Home Guard would have struggled back then. You've obviously got Ian Lavender, Arthur Lowe, Clive Dunn, John Le Mesurier. I can't pronounce his name. It's a classic. It had 9 whole seasons, ran for a good amount of time, which is unheard of in like American TV shows nowadays. British ones are always, they get to sort of 10 seasons and then they kind of fizzle out. But you'll find TV shows nowadays don't even make it past the 3rd. So back then they were kind of dedicated to their TV shows. So what shall we say to Dad's Army? So I think Dad's Army is a good one. I don't think it's a great one. For Dad's Army, for me, if you're not too invested in watching a program to do with the war, it's not going to keep you interested. But to be fair, the war is kind of a backliner to all their storylines, although it is obviously the theme. So next on the list after Dad's Army comes another classic, but this is set in a hotel, and we're talking about Fawlty Towers. 1975 with 2 comedy seasons. See what I mean? This one ran for 2 seasons only. Basil Fawlty is an intolerant, rude manager of a Torquay hotel, and he tries to run the hotel to the best of his ability, but is under constant attack from his unhelpful wife Sybil, who hinders. And then you have the most incompetent waiter the world possibly has ever seen in Manuel. He's a Spanish waiter. He speaks little English, and it's the whole running of this hotel. You've got John Cleese, Connie Booth, Prunella Scales, and Andrew Sachs. Manuel is the life and the soul of this program. And then John Cleese is just a legend. Obviously, you've got the German scene, which is now not allowed to be shown. But the rest of the series shows how not to run a hotel, I guess you could say. So Fawlty Towers, I would say, is definitely a much watch. I spent many hours of my day watching Fawlty Towers. Okay, next on the list is an oldie. This is George and Mildred from 1976, ran for 5 seasons. It's about a middle-aged housewife that feels frustrated with her mean and miserable husband. The married couple adapt to a life in an upmarket housing estate and basically try to fit in. Now, I've never seen the entire series. It's a spin-off from Man About the House, which starred Brian Murphy and Eutha Joyce. So this is about the constant sparring and arguments that feature in a modern-day housewife situation. They're forced to leave their home and they have to move, and this is how they basically carry on their life integrated into this new area. And you've obviously got Eutha Joyce and Brian Murphy as the 2 main characters. It's okay. I've seen episodes. I wasn't overwhelmed. I wasn't laughing constantly. I've never seen the entire series start to finish, but I have seen episodes. So we are going to put George and Mildred in the map because I've never fully watched it to give it enough appreciation. Now, one series that may have been seen worldwide is On the Buses. Came out in 1967, ran for 7 whole seasons, features some of the funniest people I've ever seen. Blakey and his mum are going away on holiday. At the last moment, his mum rings the depot to say she can't find anyone to look after her dachshund and tropical fish. Is one of the TV episodes. So this is basically Blakey, and he runs a bus depot. And the idea is you've got Jack the lad, who's a bus driver, you've got Stan the conductor, and it's the trials and tribulations of running a bus depot. There also was some spin-off movies made about on the buses as well, as I've just said. It is a really, it's an awkward watch. I don't know. Blakey is kind of a weird character to me. But you've got Reg Varney, Stephen Lewis, and Karen, Bobby Grant, some good names in there. So on the buses, for me, it's not great. It's not amazing. I would say it's definitely watchable. It's very tongue in cheek. Some of it can be a bit brass. So it's one of those TV series that may suit just certain people. And then the next TV show we are looking at is Porridge. Now, Porridge was a good favourite of my own parents. This was done in 1974 for 2 seasons. Porridge is a sitcom set in a prison, in Slade Prison, where the inhabitants, Norman Stanley Fletcher, who is one of the convicts, starts a fellow beefing with the fellow inmates. He's serving a 5-year sentence for burglary. He gets into all these troubles with the guard, and then you have his cellmate who turns up eventually, Lenny, and you got McKay, the warden. And basically, it just shows how life is run in a prison. He gets into trouble, and then there is another series called Going Straight, which is the spin-off once he's actually released from prison, which didn't do very well. But the jokes in here, it's kind of like dry humor, but it is watchable. I would say it's a good. I wouldn't say it's like amazing, but it is watchable. It's funny. Ronnie Barker does an amazing job. Next, we have Rising Damp, which is another oldie. 1974, ran for 4 seasons. And Rising Damp is the lives of a cantankerous, self-centered landlord and his unfortunate tenants in a rundown Victorian townhouse. So he is a landlord, and he's the landlord of Miss Ruth Jones, Alan, his unfortunate friend, and Philip, who all live in this moisture damp, falling apart kind of rundown Victorian house. He's the landlord, and you go through the trials and tribulations of his love life, trying to woo the lady next door, and it's an okay program. Some of the humor's a bit meh. So for me, it's kind of meh. It's not great, but it is watchable. Okay, next one. Now, this is the funniest comedy I think I've ever seen in British history. And that's saying a lot. And that is Some Mothers Do Have Them. Now, if you haven't watched this, this is a must. 1973, 3 seasons. Accident-prone Frank fails to navigate the simplest of tasks in his everyday life. He eventually goes on to have a baby and a wife, and the drama continues. The poor guy tries to get multiple jobs and repeatedly fails, or gets a job and then is sacked within a day. Features Michael Crawford, Michelle Daltrey, Jessica Fort, and Anthony Woodruff. It basically shows you his accident-prone love life. She eventually marries him. I can't believe, can't believe his wife marries him. But she does. Would you believe it? She marries him. She's dedicated. She really does try. Poor Betty goes through the ringer, as you call it. But it is so funny. It is definitely a must watch. If you haven't seen the stuff that he goes and he goes, ooh, when he makes a mistake in a problem, and he's always trying to get out of the blame. And they go on holiday at one point, and they they basically tear this entire hotel room apart, and he's just funny. Next we have Steptoe and Son, 1962. So this came out in 62, but it did run into the 70s, so I still counted it. It ran for 8 seasons, which is a good for a British comedy. Basically, a pervish father and his son run a rag and bone team. They struggle to get along, and the old man is set in his grimy old ways, and his son has aspirations of leaving the family business and moving on. It goes through their work life. It shows you about the rag and bone life. It also shows about their love life and how he just wants his father to die so he can leave. This featured Harry H. Corbett, Wilfred Bram Bell, Joanna Lumley featured in it at one point, and it basically shows the rag and bone train and how he's trying to get rid of his dad in the nicest way possible. He just kind of wants to die, or when he tries to leave, his dad or fate being sick, so he comes back. So it's not like massively funny. To me, it's just watchable. It is okay, and they did do like a film, I believe, in it of it as well. Next, we are looking at what are we looking at next? The Good Life. So The Good Life was the first show to try and promote eco-friendly living. This was in 1975, and it ran for 4 seasons. It's basically trying to show that you can live a minimalistic life. The Good Life was reported to be one of the first, like I said, to show the eco life. It featured Felicity Kendall, Penelope Keith, Richard Byers, and Paul Eddington. And it basically showed the trials and tribulations of a middle-class couple who try to abandon the rat race and become self-sufficient. So they have their own garden, they try and live off the land, and then they have this posh couple next door who can't understand why they want to have chickens and why they want to do a farm in their back garden. But they do end up kind of butting heads sometimes. It's an okay one. I would say it's a watchable one. Again, British comedies are kind of hit and miss when it comes to what's funny in my eyes. Next one, we've got the Liverbirds. Liverbirds. So the Liverbirds were another comedy that ran from the 60s to the 70s. So they started in 1969, but did run for 10 seasons throughout the 70s. And this features Naira Hughes, Polly James, and it's a British comedy set in Liverpool. The show is created by Carla Lane, and the 2 Liverpudlian housewives met at a local writers' club and decide to pull their talents together. I haven't seen the entire series before. I've seen little excerpts. It shows you about their love lives, trying to get work. I wasn't overly like wanting to watch this series, so it's kind of a meh. It didn't really draw me in at all. Kind of bland writing, but it did go for 10 seasons, so somebody obviously liked it. And then the last one today is Till Death Do Us Part, and if you haven't seen this one, so it ran in 1965 for 5 seasons, so it is into the 70s. And basically, it's a loudmouth bigot and his unfortunate family. So this bigot is called Alf Garnett, and he has excessive religious politics, and he rambles on certain subjects during the trials and tribulations of his family, claiming that he's hard done by, that they're taking all his money. It's a brilliant series. It features Warren Mitchell and Dandy Nichols. You've got Joan Sims as Gran. You've got Elsa. You've got Anthony Booth as Mike Rowlands. It is a laugh a minute. And he does have really bad political views in it. So if you're not into politics, race, religion, it's not really a program you're going to enjoy. He does go on some tangents. So we'll put it in watchable. It's not a bad season, but it's dependent more on the person watching it, whether you're going to be offended by anything in the video, because it is a hard-hitting TV show for its time. So here is my lowdown on the must-watch TV comedies in the 1970s from the UK. So first of all, we have Open All Hours, Faulty Towers, and some others do have them in the must-watch. In the good, we have Are You Being Served, Dad's Army, and Porridge. Watchable, we have On the Buses, Steptoe and Son, The Good Life, and Till Death Do Us Part. And then in the meh, we have George and Mildred, Rise and Damp, and the Liverbirds. So if you want to share with me down in the comments your favourite British comedies, there are going to be some more. We're going to do the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s. And then if you want to see any other tier lists, comment down below. Please feel free to share your favourite 1970s British comedies, or whether you agree or disagree with anything I put on this list. Share it out to all your friends and family so you can have a great big huge debate on the favourite comedies in the 1970s. There are some British comedies out that I haven't mentioned from the 70s. I couldn't put them all on my list because we only do 13. But if you want to see more from me, give me a big thumbs up, like, and subscribe, and I will see you all very soon for another tier list very soon. Take care and thanks for watching. Bye.